Hi there, welcome to Becoming Madame. Hi there, today we're going to do a different kind of quiche. If you remember, my very first video was on a traditional quiche, and this is going to be with salmon and spinach. Okay, so the first thing we do is always, this is a different kind of pastry, which I bought this time to give it a try. It'll be, the pâte feuilletée is a little bit more, it has more layers, and this one's going to be more like a pie crust, so we'll give it a shot, see how it goes. If you've seen my last video, it was actually my very first video on making a quiche, traditional French quiche. It's exactly the same procedure except for what we're going to put inside. So go ahead and roll out your, if you have a pre-made crust, go ahead and roll it out. Make sure to cut it to size to your pan. Don't forget to use a fork. Make some holes in it so that it doesn't sort of explode up. There we go. Center it well in your pan. Excellent. A little on the side as well. Preheat your oven at 350, which in France is about number 4 or about 180. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do in the States, you'll definitely have Philadelphia. We finally have Tartini, Philadelphia in France. I'm thrilled. Found it at Monoprix. Makes my life heaven. And what we're going to do is put a lovely, you can also use ricotta cheese if you don't happen to like sour cream cheese. And we're going to spread it along the bottom. If you have one of those lovely spreaders that you use for icing, you can use that as well. That's actually better. In fact, I have one, so I'm going to use that as well. There it is. I'm going to spread it all along the bottom. There's no real amount because it depends on how big your pie crust is, your quiche crust. So just make sure you put a thin layer all along the bottom. That's what's matter. If you use ricotta cheese, it's the same thing. All along the bottom. I've used about 100 grams for this quiche. I used about 1/3 of this, which is 300 grams. So I used about 100 grams. I'll do the calculation for you from our American viewers. There we go. Perfect. If you have a little bit left over, or a lot left over in that case, spread it on. Doesn't matter if it's messy because no one's going to see it. And we'll move on. But you're going to put your spinach. Now here's the trick for this one. This is frozen spinach, which is definitely not the best idea. But because it is beginning of spring here in France, real spinach is not out yet. You know, go take a look at my post on eating in season, and you'll notice that you have to use these. These are sort of like little crumplets that I'm going to have to boil down in order to get them into pieces. If you are doing this in summer, the very best thing you can do is get 10 or 12 spinach leaves, fresh. Make sure you wash them down and put them on the bottom. That's the very best idea. Okay, so in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and make our, exactly like we did last time. We're going to put 3 eggs into a bowl. And we're going to mix in 2 heaping tablespoons of sour cream. In French it's called crème fraîche, which is a little bit of a different taste. It's a little bit less sour. But let's put 2.5. Makes it better. And we're going to mix. You can also use a fork to mix this around. I don't want to have to do more dishes, so I'm going to use the same spoon. Mix, 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 mix. Mix until it's one color. There we go. Add in salt and pepper. Don't forget, if you're using it out of a big jar, to use your fingers. Don't get too much. Mix around. Perfect. And we'll leave that to the side until we're ready for it. In the meantime, take some fresh parsley. Probably going to use 10 or 12 sprigs. Chop them up and we'll dice them in afterwards. Okay, so once you have your fresh herbs all cut up, leave that to the side. We'll sprinkle them on at the very end. Next thing you want to do, if you haven't already bought, grated cheese, you'll need to grate your own. As I mentioned in the other video on quiches, I prefer to grate my own because here in France, it's expensive to buy grated cheese and it's not worth that. You can just grate it yourself. I actually get my husband to do it, so he'll do that in a bit. Now this is salmon that I bought from the grocery store, which is already in slices, and I'm going to cut it into little bits because what we want to do is add in the salmon in the mixture, and so we just want little bits. If you happen to love the taste of salmon, which my husband loves it, for example, and I'm not a big fan of smoked salmon. This is smoked, by the way. Then you can add some pieces on top as decoration on the quiche. I'll show you how to do that, which is lovely, but it's very strong. So be careful if you're not a big fan of the taste of salmon. I love salmon cooked, and I love this quiche. I think it's one of my absolute favorites, but I am not a big fan of smoked salmon raw. You can also add in some capers. If you happen to be a fan of capers, it tastes really good with this particular quiche as well. Just drizzle in a handful. There we go, so we have pieces like this. What we're going to do now, we have our spinach is ready. Now those little cubes have become actual spinach. And what we're going to do is spread it on. Now, as I say, the very best thing to do, definitely, is to use fresh spinach and to cut it up yourself, and to wash it and cut it up yourself and to put it on. That's the very best thing to do. The next best thing to do is to use, if you can't, if it's not summertime like here and you can't get any fresh spinach, and you like to eat in season, then the best thing to do would be to buy frozen spinach. Definitely don't buy canned spinach. Canned spinach has a, well, for me anyway, it has a very strange taste that you can't get rid of even when it's cooked, and I find it really désagréable. Okay, so we're going to put all of our spinach nicely around as the second layer that we're going to use here. There we go. Now what we're going to do is put our salmon on. Now, I've got little bits, and you just sprinkle in your little bits so that everybody has some, every part has some. I don't think I cut it very well. Looks like I have. This was 3 thin slices of smoked salmon that I've cut into little pieces. I'm going to save a few for the garnish at the end. Remember that if you don't really like the taste of smoked salmon, it's still an excellent quiche, but don't put any on top because it won't be as great. Okay, now you want to add a little bit of salt. Don't forget to use your hand, and you want to put it on top of the mixture. Then half a lemon. Squeeze on top of your mixture, especially on top of the salmon, just a little bit. Oop! Take seeds out. I didn't use it all. I used very little, in fact. But you just want to give that nice flavor. Save that for another time. Next thing you want to do is add your mixture. This again is 3 eggs, 2.5 tablespoons of crème fraîche or sour cream, salt and pepper. Pour it on evenly throughout. And if it's not totally even, don't forget that you can just wiggle it around till the two sides meet in every direction. Perfect. All right, now what we're gonna do is add in whichever herbs you decide to use. Here we've got parsley, Ennet, dill is also a really good one. There we go. And finally, add your grated cheese on top. I'll put all the proportions on the post and on the bottom of the YouTube page so that you'll have the exact proportions. Once you do it a lot, you tend to sort of wing it, but at the first time it's good to have proportions. And now for the final touches, to make it pretty, we're going to add the last little bits salmon on top. I'm going to make a circle. You can make whatever sort of pattern you like. This is sort of a sophisticated quiche. You know, if you're having company over but you don't really have a lot of time to prepare something, this takes very little time, and it's good. It's really good. And it's a little bit more sophisticated, so you know you can serve it to guests and whatnot. And there we have it. So we're going to put it into the oven for about 15 minutes. Check it to make sure you want your crust to be nice and brown, and you want obviously your cheese to be completely fondu, to be completely melted, and you also want your and to be slightly golden. Okay. Okay, so it's been 17 minutes, and you can see that the cheese is nice and totally melted across the fondu, gratin, and it's nice and brown. The edges around the crust are perfectly brown as well, so we're going to stop it and take it out. Okay, so it's done. Now we're going to leave it up here. Cool. Serve, obviously serve warm. But